Hi everyone, Lior here with another Jumpstart Lightning episode, a new series, AKS Edge Essentials. What? Play the music. Hi everyone, Lior here with another Jumpstart Lightning episode, and today I have Francisco with me. Francisco, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Lior?
I'm doing awesome. Happy to see you here. So, Francisco, today we are here to talk about AKS Edge Essentials, new series, right? We have a lot to cover, but first things first, who you are, what is it that you do?
Yeah, my name is Francisco Cabrera. I'm a technical program manager here at the Azure Light Edge team, working in the past with eFlow and now just transitioning to AKS Edge, right? And doing, working great with our team.
Francisco, this space of hybrid is blowing up. We have Arc, we have AKS now, AKS Hybrid, right? That's part of that is Edge Essentials. We have AKS all over the place. And today we're here to talk about AKS Essentials, something that personally, and you and I, we worked on some things together, something that personally I'm very passionate about because I think that it shows a great evolution of where we are taking this. And you did mention something there, Francisco, Light Edge. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, as you're saying, right, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with what the edge means, right? And in particular, in our team, we like to kind of divide that edge, right, into kind of these different segments, right? So we have the tiny edge with the MCU class of more like sensors, actuators. We have the light edge, right, where it's just like more the MPU, the PC class hardware, right? A lot of devices on the Intel NUCs, i5, 4GB, 8GB of RAM, right? And then we have the heavy edge, which is more the server class hardware, right? And when it comes to these, in our AKS offering, in this hybrid offering, we do have AKS on Azure Stack Hub, right? We have also AKS on Azure Stack HCI, and now we're bringing AKS Edge Essentials, right? Which is what I'm going to be talking about for this specific Light Edge segment.
It's a super exciting space. Francisco, when I started to work on Edge stuff, it was all about low power devices. I started to explore with Raspberry Pis a few years ago and kind of fell in love in this whole notion of low power devices, like the things that you can do with such tiny pieces of computers. And it's really something that resonates with me. So that's the direction that we're taking with this, right?
For sure, yeah, that's where we're going. These kind of small devices, small kind of constrained devices, right? Low memory, low power, and and low kind of CPU.
So what is AKS Edge Essentials really?
Sure, right. So AKS Edge Essentials is a Kubernetes platform, right? So it's CNCF conformant, right? And we have both K3s and KDS distribution, which is basically designed, right, for, as you're saying, memory constrained devices that slow, like low memory, low CPU, right? It's fully supported, right, by Microsoft, and we do provide both the option to write single machine cluster or multi-machine cluster. And at the same time, right, we do our approach by creating hyper VVMs, right? We can run both Linux nodes and Windows nodes. And that means, right, that you can run Windows containers and Linux containers.
Very cool.
And finally, right, of course, is connected to Arc so that you can manage everything right through Azure and just like deploy your application directly from Azure all the way to the edge.
So this is just at the end of the day, this is AKS cluster, tiny version of it, right? Or light version of it, if I may say. That can be stored or fit into a small device like a NUC.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly our purpose.
All right. So Francisco, I always love to nerd out on architecture, and I know that you and I are going to talk a lot about architecture in this series. So let's just dive in. How does that look?
For sure. So let me just go big picture of what we're doing, right? So you have your hardware layer, right? And on top of that, we have Windows host OS, right? And that Windows could be Windows 10, Windows Pro, or Server 2019 or 2022. And on top of that, right, is running AKS Edge Essentials, which is this platform, right, where we have this installer, we have some PowerShell commandlets, right, and we have an agent that interacts with the VM that we're creating. And basically, right, you can have a Linux node, which needs to be a control plane node, right, but also could be a Linux worker node, where you will be running, right, your Linux containers. This VM is based on CBL Mariner, which is our own Microsoft Linux distribution. And at the same time, you can have a Windows node, right? That's optional, right? And here, we're having the same approach. So we create a Windows VM on top of the Windows host OS, and there we run both KDS or K3S runtime in order to run the Windows containers, right?
Yeah. And Francisco, I have a question. It's very interesting. We took the approach with AKS Edge Essentials to support K3S as well as part of the underlying distribution. Can you share with me what was the motivation around that?
Yeah, so when it comes, right, KDS was one thing, right, a long time ago for cloud deployments, right, and it has a lot of things that are related to cloud. But when it comes to Edge, right, and when it comes to small devices and you want a small footprint, K3S was really, it's much better than KDS. So because we're targeting this light edge, with low memory, low CPU, right, K3S was like a good choice for us. So although we're offering both KDS or K3S, right, we wanted to have this opportunity for all these kind of small footprint devices that they could run this kind of distribution.
And I think that it's part of this notion of Microsoft and open source. No, it's no secret at this point. We're like all about open source and all those good stuff. And I think that it's part of the notion. When I'm thinking about AKS Edge Essentials, Francisco, I have few use cases in my head. And these days, as I am getting more and more involved in industry-related scenarios, how does that fit into that universe of industry-led architectures and design?
Sure. Yeah. So here we have a couple of kind of application patterns that we're seeing, that working with customers. So we do get a lot of traction in the kind of retail and industrial UI, right? Where you have, this UI, this machine, getting small cluster to show this UI, but at the same time, you're adding sensors, you're adding cameras, right? A lot of that. Same time, database backends up. So instead of, uploading all the data to the cloud, just, having, caching more to the edge. Sensor processing, a lot of gateways kind of type of devices where, you connect a lot of sensors, you process on the edge, and then you upload to the cloud, whatever you decide you want. And of course, then you have, the whole edge AI, right, kind of scenarios, right? We do have a lot of sample codes right now that we work with eFlow, right? And now we're going to be migrating to AKS Edge. And here you have, here are some examples, right? But there are a ton of, kind of use cases when it comes to edge AI.
So, Francisco, I know that you also have a cool demo to show me. Just kind of kick things off. I saw a tweet the other day. Francisco's just going to share with you. I saw a tweet the other day that this guy was tweeting about doing a firmware update on their washing machine, and I thought to myself, I'm about to have a conversation with Francisco, and it's definitely something that I want to mention because this space of IoT has become like insane when it comes to the things that are happening. And I think that AKS Essentials brings a lot of exciting stuff into this space. So I'm very much passionate about. Let's dive into the demo, Francisco. What do you have to show me today?
For sure. Yeah, what we're going to be doing, right, I want to show you how easy, right, is deploying, AKS Edge Essentials on top of a Windows device. And, we're going to be doing both a Linux node and a Windows node, right, and then just deploy, really simple applications, right, but just to show, how powerful this could be, right, and having both, Windows workloads, Linux workloads all together in a really simple experience, right? So yeah, let's go ahead and do it.
Loving it.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Sure. So I'm just going to start right by just going, here are our prerequisites, as I was saying, right? Windows 10, Windows 11, Enterprise Pro, right? Windows Server 2019, 2022. We just, want, 4 GB, right? At least 2 GB free of RAM. Then we, 2 virtual CPUs, and at least 14 GB of disk space, right?
That's nothing.
Nothing, right? And, we're seeing a lot of these, right, in these kind of small edge devices. Then we have another for some prerequisites, right, of Hyper-V, right? You need to be able to run Hyper-V, and there's some kind of sleeping configurations that we need to disable. I already done this all in my computer. And then here you can see, right, our installer, right? So as I was saying, right, we do have KDS, we do have K3S, right? So different installers. And then you have, if you want to run a Windows node, right, you will have to download the Windows VHDX. So, yeah, I downloaded everything, right? It takes, it's a couple of gigs, right? So I was just like, let's have it all ready. So yeah, let's go ahead and start it. So here you can see, right, I'm here, I have my AKS Edge install, all the files here. You do have, right, all these zip files, which are the Windows VHDX, right? And here you have, right, the MSI. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to open a PowerShell session. We're going to be doing all with PowerShell, right? So really simple. You can script everything if you want. So I'm going to just move here, right, to my folder. There you go. And here, I have all my files that I was talking about. So what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to install this MSI, this K3s MSI. And I'm going to make sure that I add also that I want to do Windows nodes, right? So if you're just doing Linux nodes, you don't need all these Windows files, right? And it's just like much, it's smaller, right? So I'm going to put here, right, K3s, right? And I'm going to, just make sure that I add local, right, this Windows node feature, right? That is Windows node feature. Okay, so now it's going to start, the installer. We have our EULA here, right? I'm going to go ahead and accept our EULA. And this installer take it's just like, really fast. It's just installing, as I say, our PowerShell commandlets. It's installing, these kind of other kind of bits that we use, to communicate with the VMs. And then what we call the WSSE agent, which is our engine, to communicate and to interact with the VM. So pretty fast, pretty simple, right? You can script all these. Let's see, almost there. Okay, that's there, finish. Okay, so what I'm going to show you now is just like, go to apps, make sure, that's installed here. So system, apps here. And you can see here, AKS Edge Essentials, K3s version, right? So there it is, installed. So what we're going to be doing now, right, is we're going to start with the deployment, right? And as I was saying, we're going to do a single machine cluster, right? And we're going to be doing both Windows and Linux. So I'm going to just import our module, right, which is our AKS Edge module. I'm going to just show you, a couple of commands that we have. So we do provide this module with a lot of commands, to get, set, right, create new deployments, new configs, right, stop nodes, create copy files.
A full CLI experience.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So there I have, as I was saying, a lot of commands, right, to interact with the, with the cluster and to interact with the VM. Cool. So what I'm going to do now, right, I'm going to create, right, this config file, this JSON file, in order to do both Windows and Linux, right? So we do have one commandlet, right, that enables you to create, right, a kind of a default, a template JSON file, okay? So what I'll be doing is I'm going to start by doing that, right? And then we're going to use that same file, right, to create our cluster.
So Francisco, basically what we're about to see is like a way to deploy a cluster in a declarative fashion, right? Because you mentioned that this is something that can be deployed as code, correct?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I'm going to be doing, right, if you see here, I'm going to do a single machine cluster, right? And I'm doing both Linux and Windows nodes, right? So there it is. I just created our template. I'm going to just go and check the file, right? Show you the file. I don't want to go into the details, right, of this file. But I'll just go over, the pure basics.
Yep.
So here you have deployment template, right? Deployment type, single machine cluster, right? Networking, we're using all our defaults. The important part here is when you go to machines, right? And if you see there, right, there's a Linux node that we assign it with 2 virtual CPUs, 2 GB of memory, right? And then a disk size of 10 GB. And then we have a Windows node that's running 2 virtual CPUs also. We're assigning 4 GB of memory, right? And then the time on seconds, how long it takes, right, to time out before, when it was setting up the Windows node.
Got it.
Okay, cool. So there we have it. So what I'm going to be doing now is new AKS Edge deployment. I'm going to pass, right, this file, right, that we just created. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. So what it's doing right now, first, we're going to go ahead and check all the prerequisites. And, as I was saying, your prerequisites are, Hyper-V, right, some sleeping configuration, right, OpenSSH, right. So we're going to just do a lot of checks to make sure that, you have free available memory, you have free available disk, right. And then here, right, we're just like asking for diagnostic data, right, if you want to use the optional or the required one.
Yeah.
Cool. So what I will be doing now? So basically, it's creating a network, right? This network is an internal network that is being used between the host OS and the VMs, right? So we're using this network, right, that is on the 192.168 family. You can change that if you want, right? It's part of, the configuration. We're using all the defaults here. So yeah, that network is done. So what I'm doing now, we're creating the VM, right? We're starting by creating the Linux VM, right? Because that's the the master node, that's the control plane node. So we need to create that first, and then we can do the Windows node. As you can see here, right, just, a lot of, steps of creating the VM, making sure, everything, like expanding the VHD, creating, the VM, assigning the correct memory, the correct networking, testing SSH connection, make sure, you have a correct connection between the host OS and this Linux VM. And then finally, we're just, initializing the Kubernetes runtime, right?
I like all the checks. I can really appreciate when you have pre-deployment checks. Those things are, no pun intended, essentials. To this type of thing. So yeah, I really appreciate those pre-checks.
Yeah, we do have a lot of logging also to make sure we can actually trace the issues, right? And if actually this fails, we kind of automatically get all the logs, right, and zip all the logs in one file so that you can share that with us in the future, right?
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, what's happening now? So it finished the Linux node. So now we're going to be starting creating the Windows node. So basically, we do it exactly the same. So we grab the Windows VHDX, we create a VM, we test that we actually have a network connection between the host OS and the Windows VM, right? Yeah, you have it successfully connected to the Windows node, right? And then we just initialize the Kubernetes runtime inside this Windows node, right?
Gotcha.
Pretty simple, as you see. It's just like you just declare what you want on that JSON file, then you run it, right? And this script will go over and do the whole installation, the whole VM creation. It will out, right? This Windows node already joined the cluster, right? But because it got the token from the Linux node, so it's kind of really simple, right? And there it is. Okay, so everything is running, everything working, right? So now let me go ahead and I'm going to start another admin session to make sure my kubectl is correctly set up. So I'm going to go ahead and now just like kubectl get nodes. Let's see what we have here.
Yep.
And we have two nodes, right? So we have the vbox LH, right? Vbox is my host name, and then LH stands for Linux Edge, right? As you can see, control plane, and master node running CVL Mariner Linux. And then you have the vbox, right? The WH, which is the Windows Edge, right? And as you can see there, it's running Windows 10 Enterprise.
Nice.
If I get pods, right, just, they have some pods, right, in the kube system, core DNS and local path provisioning, right? That's like for K3S version, right? So cool. So now we got everything running. What I'm going to do now, right, is I'm going to go on deploy some sample applications that we do have in our GitHub. So I already downloaded I already cloned to our GitHub. So it's a AKS Edge, right? So they have AKS Edge main. I just cloned to, the main branch. And what I'll be doing now, right, is I'm going to be deploying two applications, right? First, we're going to start with the Linux application, right? So it's only deployed on the Linux node, and then we're going to create a Windows application, a Windows container, right? It's going to be running on the Windows node. Okay. Cool. So there you have it, Linux sample and the Win sample. So we're going to go ahead, right, and apply, right, the Linux sample. This is a pretty, easy kind of demo. Is just our Azure both backend, our Azure both front end, right, and the service. So there you have, right, the three of them were created. So just
the classic voting.
Exactly, classic. I'm just gonna show and show what's this this YAML file. Again, the backend there, the front end, right, and then the service. Classic, right?
Yep.
Cool. So now what I want to show you, right, is how these pods are running on this Linux node, right? And then make sure that we can actually just showing here, it's only for Linux node, right? Yep. And then gonna show you how you can access that service directly from our Edge browser on the Windows host. So there you go.
Francisco, I can already think about the automation possibilities. When it comes to AKS Edge Essentials, and shameless plug, we are working on Jumpstart scenarios for that, but it's definitely,
yeah, for sure. How easy this is, right? And we provide also deployment scripts also, to automate all this. You can just run it directly, using any other kind of Intune, right? But yeah, so here you have, right, really simple. There you have the Linux pod running directly on the Linux node, right, and accessing directly from Edge browser from Windows. Cool. So now let's go ahead and do the other part, which is Windows sample, right? So we're gonna go ahead, right, and we're gonna apply now the Windows sample. Again, this is a really simple, classic application. It's an ASP.NET kind of, container, just one page, right? There you got it. right? If you see it, there is running the sample, and if you see on the node, it's on the brainbox, right? vbox wh. Go into our sample, you can see that it's running node selector only on Windows, right? And this is just the ASP.NET App sample app, right? And we're gonna create also this service. Cool. So now let's go ahead, right, and apply this, right? We already applied, sorry. So let's go ahead and now check, right, that the actual pod is running, right? Sometimes it takes a bit because as you know, like the Windows containers are a bit bigger than a Linux container, right? And then we have the service, right? So I'm gonna show you this, how you can get, for example, the IP address. So if I'm getting the IP address of my Windows node, which is 192.168.0.3, right? And now they already got it. There it is running, right, on the also a Windows container.
Yeah. Super cool, Francisco. I love when there is a comprehensive demo that takes you by the hand and show you the end to end. So I can definitely appreciate that. Francisco, we're doing a series here. This is going to be just this episode that we're doing right now. It's the first episode, and we're going to talk more about the architecture, the network, the storage, all the good things that are happening at the back end. But definitely impressed with the AKS Edge Essentials team and what they are able to do with this. And I love the technology, so definitely looking forward to work with this even more. Francisco, I wanted to say thank you for joining me. For the Jumpstart audience, make sure to like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments, AKS Edge Essentials, what do you think about that? Is this something that you see yourself deploying in your organization or just for fun? I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about this. Francisco, again, thank you so much for joining me, and we're going to see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Lior.